This course is presented to you free of charge by TTJ Tech Services of www.ttjtech.biz and by Stir It Up of www.stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I, so that's STURITUP.com. TTJ Tech Services and Stir It Up are pleased to offer this course to you to the glory of God and to the benefit of all those who listen. Well, praise God. And this is session number 4. It's hard to believe we're already on session 4. But we are, and we're still talking about Apple TV today. And what we're going to be doing today is talking about some of the areas of Apple TV that we've not yet covered. And I do want to allow plenty of time for questions. We still have more to talk about because the Apple TV can do a lot more than just television, right? Thus far, we've talked about movies and shows and streaming apps and even over the air with antennas. And we've talked about watching your home movies from a network attached storage drive using an app like Infuse. But now we really need to talk about some of the other apps that are on the Apple TV and some of the other little tips and tricks, things that you can do that make this just, in our opinion, the best living room device that you could possibly have. And so I want to just very quickly, now understand, we're not going to get in depth about these apps because, again, we could spend an entire session on each one of these apps and we'd have a much longer course than we already have. But we feel that if you use the fundamentals that we've already taught you about how to navigate with VoiceOver or without VoiceOver for that matter, you will be able to use any of these apps. They're all very accessible. Apple includes several of its popular apps besides just the TV app. So obviously, TV app is going to be where it begins for most of us because it is a television device. There is also the App Store, where you can easily find apps that you want to download. And not only that, but you can re-download purchased content that you may have gotten on other devices. You say, well, I know I downloaded Netflix on my iPhone and I don't feel like typing Netflix in, even though you could dictate it. You could use your iPhone's keyboard, all those things. But, I just want to find it in my purchase history. Well, you can do that. That's fine. So that's the App Store, of course. And we've certainly discussed getting different apps onto the Apple TV. And I will tell you what's really cool. When you do decide to download an app, you have the ability to enter your Apple ID password using the remote. But you also have the ability to authenticate from your iPhone. So your iPhone, your iPad, whatever can get you signed into the App Store. So if you try to download or purchase an app, you will get a choice on your television screen that gives you the option to authenticate manually or to authenticate with an Apple device. And at that moment, you'll get a notification on nearby Apple devices like your iPhone. And if you just double tap on that notification, unlock your iPhone, of course, double tap on that notification, and it will give you the option to immediately install the app on the Apple TV. And modern iPhones with Face ID, it'll say, double click to install. So you'll double click the side button on your iPhone and do Face ID authentication. And that will allow the Apple TV to be authenticated with the App Store to install the app. So that's very useful. Just a little tidbit about the App Store. There's one other part of getting apps that I want to talk about besides the App Store directly. You might remember that we talked about a concept called TV Everywhere. This is where I subscribe to a particular package with a cable provider or a satellite provider or a live streaming TV provider, whatever the case may be. And it has, 100 and some odd channels in it, including things like Food Network, HGTV, Lifetime, A&E, these kinds of channels, right? And those companies make their own apps. There's a Food Network app, there's an HGTV Go app, there's a Lifetime app, all of those sorts of things. And as long as I have that channel in my package, I can use the TV Everywhere app to watch content as well. Now, I mentioned before that some companies are getting away from these TV Everywhere apps because more and more cable and satellite providers are releasing their own apps, right? So again, if you have Xfinity, there's an Xfinity Stream app for Apple TV. There's a Spectrum app. There's a DirecTV app. So you don't really need the TV Everywhere apps. You can watch live programming in the cable and satellite apps. You can watch on-demand content in those apps. You really don't need the TV Everywhere apps. And so some content providers are shuttering their TV Everywhere apps. And in fact, there was just an article today that the Paramount Group is discontinuing many of its TV Everywhere apps, the Nickelodeon app, the Comedy Central app. They've already discontinued the Showtime Anytime app because you don't need it, because you can access those channels through something like Xfinity Stream or DirecTV. And a lot of that content is also on Paramount Plus, which is their own streaming service, right? So you may not see as many TV Everywhere apps as you used to, but there are still quite a few available. And there is a little trick for finding which ones are compatible with your TV provider. If you go into settings and you go into users and accounts and then go to TV provider, you will have the ability, if you've not already signed in, to enter your TV provider username and password. So you'll select Xfinity or DirecTV or Verizon Fios or whatever it may be, and enter your login credentials and save them. It works differently depending on certain TV providers give you more access than others. Some have a feature called single sign-on, others don't use that. But in the best case scenario, you will actually get a list of available apps that work with your TV provider. And so you can go through that list. And if you've not installed the app, you just click on it and it will take you right to the App Store to download that app. So that's a little shortcut. Again, that's under settings and users and accounts, and then TV provider. And this is great because if you're wondering, well, which TV Everywhere apps are supported with my TV provider, this is a great starting place. Again, because of different licensing and other issues, it may not have every app, but it is certainly a great place to get started seeing what apps are available for your subscription. All right, so that's a little about the App Store and downloading and installing apps. Now, Apple also includes the Photos app, the Music app, the Fitness app, the Podcasts app, and a couple more. But let's just stop there and talk about those for a moment. Again, we're not going to give you an in-depth tour here. But the Photos app is great because if you use, which we highly encourage, if you use iCloud Photos, then all of your photos and videos will be available on your Apple TV. You simply open the Photos app. There are tabs. I don't believe there's a sidebar. I'm going to check it out here to just refresh my memory. The first time you open it, it'll probably ask you if you want to enable iCloud and so forth. So we're not going to need to worry about that. But I will still go into Photos here. And what I get, they're tabs. I have 4 tabs across the top. I have, let's see, they call it a menu, but it's tabs. It has Memories, Shared Albums, and Library. So however you want to view these, you can use Albums, you can use the Library, and then the first 2, of course, Memories. For those who don't know, Memories are collections that Apple Photos automatically makes for you based on different events, maybe based on, like, if it happens to be your one of your children's birthdays, it'll have memories of that child throughout the years. If it happens to be, a summer day, it might have beach trips throughout the year, or Christmas over the years, those kinds of things. And what they do is they create these collections of photos and videos, and they even put music to them automatically. So you can enjoy a little bit of music while the photos are scrolling across as kind of a slideshow. And any one of these tabs you just click on, it's not a sidebar, it's a tab view. We've talked about those. And so, like here, it has Christmas Eve 2027, I'm sorry, 2007. Uh, Here's one of my kids, and if I want this, I just click on it with the center button, and now what it does, immediately plays music. Don't know if I know what that song is, but it's playing a song, and it's okay. I know what it is now, and it's scrolling these photos across the screen, and that's a very, very nice feature. And then the other tab I want to tell you about in the Photos app is the Shared Albums tab. For those who don't know, it's possible to create albums of photos that you share with other people. And of course, other people can share albums with you. And you can even collaboratively share so that both people are adding photos and videos and contributing to the albums and so on. So this Shared Albums tab allows you to view those as well. So really, your entire photo library is available here. Next up, let's talk about the Music app. Now, the Music app is going to certainly work best if you have an Apple Music subscription. If you don't, you can still access iTunes purchased content, and you can use home sharing through the Computers app to access music from a nearby computer. But again, it's going to work best if you have Apple Music, which we do. And there's a lot of tabs in the Music app. I'll just tell you very, very quickly what they are. Let's see. So we have, wow, yeah, we got a whole bunch of tabs here. This home, like Listen Now tab, browse videos for music videos, radio, library, which is your own music library of things you've added, now playing, which shows you what's currently playing and gives you access to a full screen playback controls, and even then the search tab. And in each one of these, I have lots of things that I can do. Of course, I can browse music, browse radio stations. In the library tab, I can access my playlists, my songs. In the now playing tab, once I start playing something, I have full screen now playing controls as well as time synced lyrics. This is really great for next time you want to have people over and do a little karaoke, right? You can have people singing because they have the vocal volume option on many songs. So you can click on vocal volume, and then you can actually use the volume button on your Apple remote to fade the lead vocals of a song. And you use that in combination with the time synced lyrics that are going across the screen as they're supposed to be sung in the song, and somebody can really have a good time with this with karaoke. Now that can get a little weird with voiceover. I mean, it works. It's not a criticism, but it's kind of funny because you'll hear Alex or whoever your voiceover voice is attempting to read the lyrics as they go across the screen. You can turn voiceover off if you don't want to hear that, obviously, and probably most people will. But for those who can see, those time sync lyrics are really useful, and you can do the vocal volume, so you can take out the lead voice. But of course, you can also just use the Music app to listen to music, and that's fine too, and it works great. And perhaps your television speakers or your sound bar or whatever you have, will be some of the best speakers in the house, so you can listen to your music there. And music continues to play in the background even when you leave the Music app, but you can press the play pause button to stop it if you want to pause the playback of music. The other apps I mentioned to you so far are the Podcasts app and the Fitness app. The Podcast app, much like the Music app, right? You can subscribe. You can listen to different podcasts you already follow. Of course, all of this is synced with the apps on your iPhone and iPad, so it makes it very easy. Even your Mac, right? Everything stays in sync. So if you start listening to a podcast on your Mac, you can continue on your Apple TV and so on. So that works great as well. And then the fitness app, and this syncs beautifully with your iPhone, with your Apple Watch. So you can be wearing your watch and you can participate in various Apple fitness programs using your Apple TV to see and hear what the instructor is doing, and your watch to keep track of it as you do it, right? So calories you've burned, steps you've taken, flights of stairs you've climbed, whatever. Maybe some of them use, a bicycle or a treadmill or something. And so if you subscribe to Apple Fitness Plus, you can use this fitness app with the various workouts that Apple offers. And so that is a great experience also that a lot of people are really, really enjoying. All right, another app that I want to talk about now is the FaceTime app. If you scroll over on a recent Apple TV 4K, you will find a FaceTime app. And this is pretty awesome. So what this does, it allows you to make a FaceTime call. Or if you've received a FaceTime call, you can put it on the Apple TV as well. But it allows you to hear and see the people you're talking to on the big screen. Now, how do they hear and see you? Well, they're going to hear and see you from the camera and microphone on your favorite iPad or iPhone device. And that is called continuity camera. So when you first open the FaceTime app, it's going to tell you to position your iPhone or iPad in front of the television in a certain way, landscape or whatever. Just follow the instructions. And it's going to try to get you to calibrate the two so that everything is lined up. If that's a struggle for you as a voiceover user, you can skip that step. It's not recommended to skip it, but you can. And then on the television, using your Apple remote, you're going to be able to select somebody to call. You're going to be able to, once you call them, again, the iPad or iPhone that you have there will use its camera and its microphone, and you'll be able to use the Apple remote to control things like for example, muting and unmuting of your audio or starting and stopping of your video. And you'll also be able to control other things, like you can have emojis. You can even do hand gestures that will make emojis appear for the other person. And you can do the center stage feature, which for those who don't know is a feature that allows your face to stay in camera view even when you're moving around. It sort of tracks you a little bit. I mean, within reason. You can't leave the room or anything, but as long as the camera, it's a very wide cameras, so if they can still see you, then so center stage, that's a feature that you can enable. And all of this is done on the Apple TV then with the Apple remote, but using the microphone and the camera from your iPhone or iPad. So that's continuity camera, and it works with the FaceTime app. And what if you receive a call? What if somebody calls you on FaceTime and you answer on your iPad or your iPhone, but you want to transfer that in a manner of speaking to your Apple TV? Well, the way you're going to do that is you're going to open Control Center. Now, remember, we've talked about Control Center. That's where you press and hold the TV button for a second or two, and it opens up the Control Center. Remember, we talked about the three main sections that most people will have. They'll have Control Center, they'll have the user profiles, and they'll have the HomeKit controls. But when you're on a FaceTime call, you're also going to have FaceTime controls. And so you'll be able to transfer the call to your Apple TV using continuity camera. So that is how that's done. So some other things can appear in the Control Center, and that's one of them. And that's FaceTime on the Apple TV. And by the way, this feature works with other apps. So there is now a Zoom app for Apple TV. So you could be running your Zoom session using your Apple TV. And now the WebEx app is also available as of today on the Apple TV. So you have options there as well. And this is a great feature, brand new this year. Well, in version 17 anyway. And so it's really, really awesome that we can do this on our Apple TV. All right, another thing that I'd like to just very briefly talk about is Apple Arcade. You'll find an app for that on your Apple TV's home screen as well. And Apple Arcade has hundreds of very high quality games that you can play if you've subscribed to the service. When you do play them, there are no ads, no in-app purchases. It just works. No additional subscriptions, anything like that. And again, the games are very, very high quality, great audio, great visual effects, all of those things. Now, due to the level of graphics and so on in many of these games, you're not going to find a lot of them that are accessible with voiceover right now. So if we have voiceover users here, it's kind of hit or miss. There may be a few. Like anything else, Apple has given these developers the framework that they need to make their apps accessible. But for some of these games, it's just not, a practical thing when you're moving all around the screen and doing different things. There are some that are a little bit more text based or some other things that maybe you're bowling or something that you probably can do. But these are, either way, they're great to play with family and friends, and it's great to know that we have them on the Apple TV. This truly is every bit as good as any game console, with Apple Arcade games and a lot of other games available on the App Store as well. And speaking of games, the Apple TV does work with game controllers. So if you prefer to play your console games with a game controller, that's very doable on the Apple TV. Now, there are some game controllers that are made specifically for Apple devices. My favorite one being the SteelSeries Nimbus Plus. That is a fantastic game controller available for the Apple TV and other Apple devices. It charges with a Lightning cable, and it pairs with your Apple TV using Bluetooth. We have actually 2 or 3 Nimbus controllers so that multiple people can be playing games at a time at our household. Now, if you prefer, you can also use the game controllers from your Sony PlayStation, your Xbox, or your Nintendo Switch. So these controllers are supported in the Apple TV and other Apple devices as well. So you simply go into settings and go to Bluetooth, and you can pair game controllers for use in these different games. Now, there are truly a very wide variety of games and game types available. As I said, some are very, very graphic, role play type games. Others are, bowling and tennis, and there's some word games and trivia games and just all sorts of things. There's even a game called, Sketch Party TV, that lets you draw on your iPad, and it shows up on the Apple TV. And so your iPad tells you what to draw. Nobody else sees that on the television. And then when you do draw, the drawing shows up on the Apple TV so people can guess what you're drawing. There's a lot of great stuff. There really is. And speaking of third-party apps, it's not just games, right? There's some fantastic cooking apps. In fact, my very favorite recipe app for Apple in general is called Ombre. You have to pronounce it Amber in order to use it with SIRI, because that's how she pronounces it. So I just get used to saying Amber, but it's technically the Spanish word for hungry, right? And this is the app I use anyway for recipe management and storing and organizing recipes. And it's got a cooking mode. You can even use it with your home pods. You can use it with your iPad and iPhone. And it's got an Apple TV app. So you can display recipes on the big screen using that app. And there are other apps that have recipes in them as well, and cooking videos. There are also there are weather apps for the Apple TV. Now, of course, you can ask SIRI about the weather, so you don't really need an app. But the Weather Channel has an app for Apple TV. Carrot Weather is another one. There are several different weather apps. There are some really cool visual apps for the Apple TV. So right out of the box, the Apple TV has great screensavers. You can use your photo library, your memories as screensavers, or you can use what they call aerial screensavers, which are things like screensavers from views from this outer space, from the International Space Station, underwater views, city views, all kinds of things like that. So you can choose whether you're using aerial or photo. If when you use a screensaver, what's really cool is if you leave the screensaver on a while, every time it changes, VoiceOver will announce what it's displaying. So it'll tell you it's displaying memories of your beach trip, or if it's aerial, it'll tell you it's an overhead view of San Francisco or something, right? And if you visually want to see the name of what's being displayed on your screensaver, you can simply tap on the remote with one finger. Just place a finger on the remote and it'll bring up the title. And you can also swipe left and right to go through different images in your screensaver. And then, of course, you can press the back button to return to normal operation. So there's already some great visual features on the Apple TV like that. But then there are apps you can download, such as the Fireplace app. I think it's called Magic Fireplace is maybe the one that I have. I'll see if I can find it real quick just to be sure, because I was using a couple different Fireplace apps. But let me just look here. Oh, that's Grubhub. You got Grubhub on Apple TV. Hangman. Where's the one oh, yeah, it's Magic Fireplace. Okay, that is what it's called. Magic Fireplace will display different fireplaces on your Apple TV. You have a whole bunch of choices if you pay for the in-app purchase as to what the fireplace looks like and even what it sounds like, because it has the crackling in the background. And what's really cool is you can also play your music library with the crackling fireplace. So you can have music playing and the crackling fireplace, and it looks real. And when you do this, you also have the ability to have other types of apps like that, like aquariums, and so there's a lot of really cool visuals there. There's one more type of third-party app that I want to tell you about. The other category of apps that I want to tell you about is music apps. Now, we already talked about Apple Music on the Apple TV, but we also have apps for Sirius XM, Pandora, and there are lots of others. So those are two of the most popular ones you can download onto your Apple TV. Of course, you need a subscription to use Sirius XM, but if you have one, you can sign in and you can listen to your Sirius XM music there as well. All right, so I'd like to move on and talk about some different tips and tricks. The first one I'd like to talk about actually relates to music and video, and it's something called AirPlay. Now, your Apple TV is connected to the big screen, and so it's probably the biggest screen in the house. It also might be connected to the best speakers in the house. And so AirPlay allows you to take any content from your iPhone, your iPad, or your Mac and display that content on the Apple TV and therefore on your television. This includes video and audio. Now, an example of this might be that I'm listening to something on my iPhone and it doesn't maybe have an app on Apple TV, but when I listen to it on my phone, I want to still hear it on the Apple TV, on the television. And so I can use AirPlay from my phone, or if I'm browsing something in Safari on my phone and I want everybody to see that website on the television, I can AirPlay that. You also can do this the opposite direction. You can also take what's on your Apple TV and you can play it on other speakers in the house. So let's talk about the ways that we do this. It is often initiated from the control center. Now, some apps also have an AirPlay button in them, but we can always initiate an AirPlay session from the control center. So on our iPhones or our iPads, we will find a section of audio controls in the control center. We will see the playback destination as the iPhone or the iPad, whatever that device is. But if we tap on that, we can change it. We can pick from any of the Apple TVs in our home or any of the HomePods in our home so that we can play this music or audio on another set of speakers. We also will see an option in Control Center called screen mirroring. Now, screen mirroring will take the video and the audio from our iPhone or iPad, and it will display that on our television. So that's how we would do video and audio. And you can do this from the Mac control center as well. Now, what about if you want to go the other way? What about if we're playing a show on our Apple TV, but we want to listen to that show on a different set of speakers? And this is very useful because you have multi-room audio, so you can be listening on more than one set of speakers at a time. And I have done this many times. We have home pods throughout our house, including in the kitchen. And, sometimes we will be watching a movie or a show and, we'll say, well, we're hungry. We want to have a snack. And so the kids will say to me, go get the snack, but we don't want to pause the movie. We don't want to wait. We want to keep watching it. And I'll say, well, all right, then let's just put the sound on the kitchen home pod at the same time. So now what we do to do that is we go to the Apple TV control center. Remember, where you press and hold the TV button, and then it displays the TV OS control center. And in this case, you're going to go to the control center section and swipe down to audio. And you'll be able to choose multiple sources, including the TV speakers themselves, but also, in this example, the kitchen home pod. So now I've got audio playing through both the TV speakers and the kitchen home pod. And so I'm not going to miss a thing when I go out there to get that snack. And then later on, we can turn that back off if we want to. We can add more, as I said, multi-room. So you can do many home pods or many other AirPlay-enabled speakers at the same time. Now, speaking of home pods, there is also the ability to make your home pod the permanent speaker for your Apple TV. And when I say permanent, of course, you can always change it later, but you can make it the default output for your Apple TV. Now, the requirement for this is that you must have at least one home pod in the same room as your Apple TV, and it must be configured in the same room using your HomeKit settings. Under your TV OS settings, there are options for AirPlay and HomeKit, and you can specify a room of the house that the Apple TV is in, such as living room. And likewise, when you set up your home pods, you can pick the same room or, whatever room they're in. If they happen to be in the same room, the Apple TV and the HomePod will allow you to sync them together, and it'll say, do you want to use this HomePod as your TV speakers? Now, the best situation here is where you have two HomePods in the same room, not just one, but you've got two, and you've created a stereo pair. When you have a stereo pair of HomePods for the default output of an Apple TV, this actually creates what is like a virtual 5.1 surround sound experience. Now, I know there will be some audio files that will try to, debate that with me, and it's not a 5.1. No, it's not a true 5.1 because you don't have 5 speakers, but it's a virtual. It makes you feel like it is a 5.1 because it's using Dolby Atmos. It's using very high quality audio. And if you have your HomePods positioned right in the room, you can actually hear, like I've watched some shows where there's some action, maybe there's an airplane flying, you can actually hear it flying from one side of the room to the other. I truly feel like using the HomePods gives you the best audio experience for your TV. Better than a lot of the other competition. I won't mention any names, but any of the popular audio systems you can think of out there, I believe it's better than any of those. And I've used most of them. I have even been in homes where they have, $3,000 or $4,000 home theater systems. And I believe this combination of two HomePods is better than that. So this is a little different than just the AirPlay. AirPlay is like on the fly, as I gave the example, I want a snack, so I'm going to add the kitchen HomePod to my audio and I'm still using, TV speakers or whatever. That's one thing. But you can also go into your settings under video and audio, and you can actually make your HomePods the default output for a particular Apple TV, as long as they are configured in the same room of your home. And there's one more thing to talk about with that. When I first set this up and I tried it, I said, boy, it sounds so good with the Apple TV. But then my kids would go to play their At that time, it was their Xbox. And I'd say, man, now the Xbox is coming through my TV speakers. It's not coming through the HomePods. I sure wish there was a way to make that happen. Well, it turns out there is through a feature called ARC, A-R-C, which stands for Audio Return Channel. And what you must do, all right, is you must use a high quality 4K HDMI cable to connect your Apple TV to your television. And you must put it in the HDMI port that has the word ARC on it on the back of your TV, or it might have E-A-R-C, E-ARC, okay? If your television does not have that, you're not going to be able to do this. But if it does, and you use that particular HDMI port for the Apple TV, you're going to now be able to use the HomePods for anything that would normally come through your TV speakers. Cable box, PS5, DVD player, it doesn't matter. And there's a setting you have to enable. Again, it's under settings, and then it's under the video and audio settings. Once you have made your HomePods the default speaker, there's going to be an option to play television audio, and you can enable that setting. And now everything, no matter what input, is going to come through your HomePods. So this is a really cool experience. Whether you do this or not, of course, is personal preference. Some people like to keep their HomePods separate, and they have a sound bar they're happy with, and they just use their HomePods on occasion with AirPlay. You know, whatever you want to do, that's your choice. But the option is available. And as I said, I don't believe that you will find better sounding audio than what you can get with the HomePods. So that's AirPlay, that's screen mirroring, that's HomePods as default. Just remember, you have to have them configured in the same room of your home. And while we're talking about the home and the rooms, let's remind you that Apple TV is a great smart home hub. Okay. I'm not going to get into the technical details of it right now, but the Apple TV does function as a smart home hub with Apple HomeKit. And it also allows you to control your home devices. So you can set your Apple TV to notify you when a door is locked or unlocked, when a garage door is open or closed. You can set it to actually notify you when motion is detected, when somebody rings the doorbell, if you have the right accessories, of course, right? And if somebody rings the doorbell, they can see a picture. You can see a picture of the person who's at the door on your television. Another thing we can do is we can view through the control center. We can view our HomeKit enabled cameras. So we can actually view those cameras and doorbells right in the HomeKit section of Control Center. Of course, we can also activate various scenes, and we can even use SIRI, right? We can ask if the door is locked, or instruct SIRI to change the temperature of the thermostat. Whatever you have that's HomeKit compatible, you can ask those questions. And then some of these, so like, for example, I'll just do it using my remote now with you-know-who, the personal assistant, and I'll say, is the garage door open? Okay. Now, if I wanted to actually open it, it just told me the main garage door is closed. But if I wanted to actually open it, it's going to make me authenticate on my iPhone or iPad, because it's considered a secure accessory. And so it's not going to automatically open it just at the sound of your voice. That's for your own security. But it will close it. It will close the garage door just by you requesting it with your voice. So that's like a HomePod, right? Apple really has thought of all of this stuff to give you the best possible experience that it can. So that's using Siri and HomeKit. Now, I also want to talk about, I'm going to give you an example of something here. I've got my iPhone here, okay? And I want to talk about another cool little tidbit here, which is that we can use our iPhone and our Apple Watch as a remote for the Apple TV. So I've got my iPhone here, and I'm going to open the control center of my iPhone.
Notes. Control center, airplane mode, switch button, off.
Now, as I swipe, listen to what you hear.
Blue AirPlay, media control, AirPlay audio. Button.
Okay, there's that AirPlay section I told you about.
Screen brightness.
There's screen mirroring, but let's keep going.
Brightness, volume, selected, accessories and garage and living, kitchen, hallway, flashlight, switch, Apple TV remote, button.
You hear that? Apple TV remote. And so I can double tap on that, and now...
Mode, mute connecting, gesture area.
Okay, it only took it
tap to enable gestures.
Maybe a half a second there to connect, praise God, and it's now connected. We'll see what it's connected to by swiping.
Power, button, living room, 3, button.
That's my Apple TV in the living room. If I want to change that, I can double tap and it'll give me a list of the Apple TVs that I can control. But that's the correct one.
Mute button.
You can see I have the mute.
Mute living room power button.
Power.
Gesture area.
If I
double tap to enable gestures.
If I double tap on the gesture area, I can use it like the click pad of the remote.
Play/pause button.
There's your play pause.
Menu button.
Your back button. They call it menu, but
home button.
Your TV button.
Home
okay.
Button.
So all of these are able to be done, and you can use the volume buttons on your iPhone to control TV volume. You can input text when you need to do that. But I want to show you one other really cool little tidbit. If I double tap on the name of the Apple TV,
gesture power, living room 3 button, living room 3.
It brings up my list of Apple TVs.
Power dimmed, but living room 3, Apple TV button, find button.
And look at that. It says the word find. I want to show you.
Entertainment room, find. Entertainment room 3, LG Web OS TV, master bedroom 2.
So I have different Apple TVs listed here, but I want to go back to that find by the living room. Let's suppose I've misplaced my Apple remote. Now I'm going to tap on find.
Find button. Find. Activate to dismiss pop-up window.
Now you can't tell. My phone is vibrating. It's tapping on me as I move. Moving. And that little vibration and that little sound means I have come in contact with my Apple remote. And that's exactly right. It came right to it. And so it was that easy. And if I look, like if I move my finger on the screen.
Living room near. Signal decreasing. Keep moving. Near. Keep moving. Done. Keep moving. Done. Keep moving. Look for your remote nearby. Here. Look done. Action.
Now, isn't that awesome? So if I misplace, now, we're just gonna click on that again so that it closes that, and there we go. So isn't that awesome? Because if I would happen to misplace my Apple remote, I can use my phone to find it. And there are visuals, but of course I had haptic feedback. And if I swipe on screen, it even says, the keep looking, signal decreasing, or look for it nearby, whatever, at that particular moment. It's really, really cool. So that is awesome. And that's under the control center of your iPhone. That is, the Apple TV remote control. Okay. Here's another tidbit. I'll talk about AirPods for a minute. AirPods are, in my opinion, some of the best headphones on the market. I actually like the AirPods Pro. I've got the second generation AirPods Pro, and they work great. They work well with the Apple TV also. And when you put them in your ears, there will be an AirPods control in the control center on your Apple TV. The first thing you're going to need to do, though, is you're going to need to switch the audio to the AirPods. And how do you do that? Well, again, you go to Control Center on the Apple TV. You put the AirPods in your ear. They should already be paired with the Apple TV because of iCloud, as long as you have them on your Apple ID. So you go to Control Center and you pick the audio section, just like you would pick to choose a HomePod or something, but you choose the AirPods. And then it gives you an additional AirPods control at the top now. So you can do things like spatial audio. So the sound is coming from all around you as you move. It sounds like it's surrounding you. And you can do noise canceling controls. And you can even share your AirPods, or I should say, you can share the TV with two sets of AirPods. So recently, my parents tried this feature. They had two sets. Each one has a set of AirPods, and what they do is they both have their AirPods in, and they can share the TV audio with both sets of AirPods at the same time. I mean, that's really, really cool. Just to think about all of this stuff that we can do that Apple has thought about, it truly is incredible. Now, I'm sure that I'm missing a lot of stuff, right? Because there are ways to use your Apple TV with VPNs and with hotel Wi-Fi. There's a conference room display feature that's great for using your Apple TV in school district and education and conference room settings. There's the multiple user feature, which I did talk to you about a little bit already, having multiple profiles on here. There's just so much that we can do. One of the other really cool things we can do is share play. If I start a movie or a TV show on my Apple TV, and then I make a FaceTime call on my iPhone or iPad, I have the option of sharing what I'm watching with the people on the FaceTime call. Now, of course, there are some caveats, right? They have to also be subscribed to whatever service I'm using, right? So if it's Disney Plus, they have to be Disney Plus subscribers as well, for example. But we can actually have a shared viewing experience using what you're watching on the Apple TV. And again, that's going to be available in Control Center. It'll give you another, an added option in there. When you are on a FaceTime call, you'll have a share play choice in Control Center, and you can start the share play session just like that, and both people will have access to watch what you're watching. What I'd like to do is I'd like to now get some comments from the other instructors that we have here. And then, of course, we want to take questions as well. We have covered over the past 4 sessions quite a lot. And I think you're seeing just how awesome and just how powerful this device really is as a living room device, as an entertainment device, and so much more. I am absolutely thrilled to have with us today John Panarese of Mac for the Blind. I'm thrilled to see John here. We often co-teach and refer students and customers to each other, and we really appreciate everything that John does for the community. He is just a fantastic gentleman.
You are like super comprehensive with this stuff, and I learned things that I was not even aware of. So I don't know how much more I can really add to this other than to just emphasize the fact that combining all these Apple products, such as the Apple TV and the HomePod, and having multiple, locations for these things is really underrated. And I'm glad you touched on how you can send the audio to different, if you have multiple HomePods and stuff like that. I didn't know you could switch the TVs like that with the iPhone. That's new to me.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
It is. And the point that you bring up, it cannot be overstated, because that is one of the beautiful things about the so-called Apple ecosystem, which sometimes almost gets a mysterious, if not negative, connotation, right? We're entering into this cult or something. But the power of the Apple ecosystem is its ability to let us seamlessly use all these devices together whenever we want to, without having to worry about, is this going to be available on this device? Is that going to be available on that device? We just know that, yes, it actually is going to be available. After we talked this morning, I read another review about the Vision Pro, and somebody was talking about using their Mac with the Vision Pro and having the Mac displayed on the Vision Pro. So suddenly, instead of it being on the monitor, it's now all around them, floating above their desk, but they can still use the Mac keyboard and mouse with no latency. And they even said in that review article, only Apple could do something like that. And
Right.
I think it's true. I mean, the way that the continuity and the integration and the syncing between all these devices, it's like if you have, again, as we talked about this morning, personal preference, right? No right or wrong. We're not criticizing anybody. But why in the world? Why in the world would you go out and buy an Amazon Fire Stick or a Roku if you have an iPhone and an iPad? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You'd buy an Apple TV because it's going to fit so perfectly into that ecosystem.
I think the big problem is a lot of people don't know this. And
That's
on
right.
Apple's behalf, I don't think they really push this, especially like the advertising and commercials. This is an area where they really, I don't think have taken advantage of the possibilities for people. And to have commercials, that would actually demonstrate this to the average consumer, I think would change the outlook on, going out to buy
You are
an
the co-host
Amazon
now.
Fire Stick or whatever. So I think that's in a way Apple's like not tapping, at least from unless I'm, missing something in the commercials, at least that have been
Sarah's iPhone is
described
the
to me.
co-host now.
I haven't seen any of this being sort of touted by Apple.
Right. No, I think you're right. It's there, it's in user guides and it's deeper in things, but no, it's not heavily promoted. And I think a lot of people are not aware of it. It's underappreciated probably.
Well, I think they emphasize obviously the iPhone and most of the commercials that at least I'm aware of that
Right.
Are on television for Apple or either the phone or the watch. Again, I could be wrong. I can't see. So, I'm just saying from what people have told me when I've been in situations where the TV has been on watching a game or whatever, so I think that, for Tim Cook as a marketing guy, I think he's kind of missing the boat in really promoting how well this stuff does sync. And it's like more of a geek, secret, society knowledge thing.
Right, exactly. I mean, it is, and yet it's so simple and so straightforward. I mean, I demonstrated there using the iPhone as the Apple remote. You can do that with the watch too. There's a remote app on the watch, and you can control any of your Apple TVs, and you can. I mean, and you even I didn't even get into how you can tell SIRI. Like I can say, play such and such a show on the living room television, and it will play on that Apple TV or, other room. You can use that assistant to do that too. So yeah, truly incredible. It really is.
The Apple TV is a great device. One of the things you didn't mention, and you probably don't know because you don't have the setup that I do, is when you use ARC, you're able to get the sound from other devices like your Xbox, your Sony PlayStation, DVD players if people still even use them. But the one feature that I like, and I don't know if it was by design or by accident, but it's been doing it for the last year and a half now, is when I have ARC set up, not only does the Xbox sound come out of the HomePods in stereo surround sound better than any high-end system that you can buy, I also have a sound bar that I bought to just complement my TV for times that I thought ARC would not work with the Xbox. But the HomePods, and I wish it did this with the Apple TV too, but the HomePods and the soundbar both give me sound. So not only do I get the stereo surround sound from the HomePods, I actually get the soundbar bass from the subwoofer and the soundbar piece that's under the TV. I can turn both of those up and get true surround sound. Not saying that the HomePods don't get the job done, but when I'm playing, fighting games with my kids or sports games, myself, it gives you that true surround crowd feel that soundbar adds to it. Like I said, the HomePods do just fine, but having that extra element gives you, even more true depth surround sound. Now, like
that
I said,
is really awesome.
I wish the Apple TV did it. I mean, you actually can. It takes a little bit of tweaking. You have to unselect ARC, select the HomePod stereo pair, and then go select the Apple TV, and then turn
Right.
them
You could
both
do
up.
it through AirPlay. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I just wish
Right.
it
But
did
no,
it the
that's
same
really
way
good
it
to know.
did with ARC with the Xbox, because that would be great, because it would not involve so much adjustment per se. But
Right.
like you said, the ARC setup is truly I mean, people might disagree. People might think I'm being an Apple fanboy, which I am. But the bottom line is, I would rather spend what is it, $600 on two HomePods than $3,000 on a high end system that's gonna complicate
Absolutely.
things anyway.
Absolutely.
I don't
That's
think you
great.
missed anything, Matt. Did you mention? Because like I said, I didn't hear all the sessions straight through,
Right.
and today
Right.
I was in and out. But did you mention that the HomePods can be connected to your video doorbell camera and ring through your HomePods throughout the house?
Well, I didn't specifically talk about that from the HomePod perspective, but just the Apple TV. But yes, that is true that
And that the cameras
your
do. I think I
HomePods,
did hear you mention that the cameras do show up on screen when somebody is at your
they do,
door.
yes. But right, your HomePods can actually ring like a doorbell as well. And
Exactly. Yep.
if you have a doorbell that is compatible with Apple's HomeKit Secure Video, remember that name, because those doorbells will actually, not only will the HomePods ring, but they will announce, if they know the person based on your photo library, they will announce who's at the door, right, Cliff? I mean, they'll
Yep.
actually say, you know, and that is really, really cool.
I mean, I live in an apartment now, so I'm not able to use the circle doorbell like I was when I owned the home, when I at my home that I actually still own. It's on the market now, but but it's that doorbell it works right out of the box. And with HomeKit, you plug it up and sync it to your, you scan the barcode and it's instantly in HomeKit. All you got to do is, give it a location, which normally would be the front door or the hallway, whichever you choose, or you can custom name it, and you're good to go. You just set how you want it to record. If you want it to record all the time, stream, and if you have iCloud Plus with what is it, Matt, 50 gigabytes or more, or does it have to be 200? You get the extra storage for just the camera.
Right, right, exactly. And
So, Cliff, can I just interject here? Like, you just moved. How
Right. I mean,
easy was it for
well, it
you
was.
to move? Like, I know like moving is difficult, but how difficult is it or easy is it to move all your tech and reconnect it, being an Apple fanboy, as you put it?
It's not hard at all. It's plug and play. I mean, because
Exactly.
as long as you have the same Wi-Fi network, which I do because I brought my own pods with me, the Eero system. Matt used to use them, but Comcast finally stopped being difficult about how they let you use them pods now, Matt. So you use those, right?
yes, I now use the Comcast system. They have a really,
Yeah.
really good system. Yeah.
So unless I mean, even if I had went to a different provider, which I didn't, because Spectrum is in the area that I'm in now. But even if I had to switch to Comcast, I would have still used my pods. It would have been the same network, and all I would have had to do was make sure that the internet was going through the modem and plug everything up, and less than 5 minutes, everything is up and running just like it was before.
Right. The hardest part would be if you were somehow forced to use a different Wi-Fi network name. And
Right.
Cliff, you had to do that one time, and you had to reset all of your devices pretty
Right.
much, and
But
that
I
took a
mean,
lot of it.
the one that was the most difficult wasn't even an Apple system. It was that god darn the toaster oven that you recommended.
Oh, so it's Matt's fault?
Yep, it is. I'm
Yeah,
blaming him.
yep.
But I
Yeah,
mean, the
that's
camera was so
I've
easy.
had
You
the
just
same
hold a
network
button
name.
on. You just hold a button on the back of the camera and it resets. You scan and you're done. It takes less than 30 seconds. Same with the
Yeah,
Logitech
yeah,
doorbell. I mean, it's not that easy. You actually have to remove it from its holder, plug it into a USB micro USB that to the wall and scan it that way. But once it's done, you put it back in its holder and you're up and running. So I mean, they're all plug and play, easy to do. I mean, the HomePod, you don't even have to do nothing except sign into your Apple ID and make sure they're on the same Wi-Fi network as your phone, and you're good to go. So Apple TVs, HomePod, I mean iPads, phones, I mean all that stuff. It just works, as we say.
yep, exactly. Now, Sarah does bring up an interesting point. If you subscribe to a live TV streaming service like Hulu Plus Live TV or DirecTV Stream, there will be a little bit of not anything hard, but you will have to change your home address on your account, and it resets. Your it's going to be a different IP address, different home location. Some live streaming TV apps use your IP address, others use your physical address.
Now, to
And
be
so
clear,
that
Matt, that's not with the on-demand ones like Paramount Plus and
no,
Hulu with
no,
ads or whatever like that.
that's
Because
right.
pretty much all you have to do is change your zip code if your payment method is the same, and you're good to go.
That's
Pretty
right.
much, right?
It's
Okay.
only for ones that offer live TV, and really, even at that, it's only for ones that offer live local programming. Like if you
Right.
use Philo doesn't have local channels. They don't care where
And
your zip
Paramount
code,
Plus
what it's
either,
coming
because I
from.
was able to,
Yep.
tune into the game on Sunday with no issue at all.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Now, what about your location? Like, say you are signed into your streaming service and you do forget to go, wouldn't it enable you to just, sign out and sign back in and tell it to use your location and do it that way until you were able to get to the website? Aren't you able to do it that way?
Well, yeah, most of them can do it within the app without you having to go to the website. Yes. Yep.
I'm trying to think
Yep.
if there's
Absolutely.
anything else. Um, I mean, the Apple TV is one of those devices. We talked about it this morning that you thought, just taking it out of the box, plugging it in, downloading your favorite app was all there was to it. But there's so much more, like you talked about, FaceTime, Zoom. I haven't even tried on there yet. And doesn't WebEx have an app for it too, or is that not yet ready?
Yes, they do. Yep, they have one too.
So it's
Yep.
it's becoming more of than just a hobby, as they called it. And you can conferencing. Did you talk? I know you touched on the additional display where you can mirror and AirPlay stuff to it. Like, isn't classrooms using Apple TVs now?
Yes, absolutely. That's definitely a thing, and it works brilliantly in classrooms. Because instead of having to use complicated wiring and everything, they can just use an Apple TV. And we actually, I think he has since maybe gotten another job somewhere else. I can't remember anymore for sure, but we have or had a teacher at our district who, even though we are a Google school, he brought in his own Apple TV and he connected it to. I don't know if he brought in a television or if he connected it to the projector in the classroom or what, but I mean, he preferred to do it that way because it just works so well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got um, what's that called? Fire TV and the Roku, but none of them can do what the Apple TV can do. They can't. Now, Roku, I will give them their credit. They are probably, I think they do sell more than Apple, but it has nothing to do with the features. I guess it's having to do with personal preference, I guess. But,
Right, right.
you know, there's nothing in my house but Apple devices.
Yeah,
Nothing. I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, my work PC, but who's telling anybody? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Cliff, I addressed this on day one, and I think we've sort of addressed it today anyway, but I'm going to ask it exactly the way that some people ask it to me, and I'll let you answer it because I think our answer will be the same. But, some people say, well, I already have a smart TV and it has Netflix and it has Hulu and, it has everything. Why should I buy an Apple TV when my smart TV already has all that and a screen reader?
now, do you want me to give you a blind community answer or just a general public answer?
I think both. I think both. I think that's a worthwhile, as I said, I sort of covered it on day one, but I think it's a worthwhile question to answer because you get that all the time. People say, well, I just got a smart TV. It's got a screen reader. It's got Netflix. It's got, all these things. So why do I need an Apple TV now?
Well, the sighted world tells me, and I'm the only blind one that lives in my house, so my sighted family prefers the Apple TV over the smart TV for a lot of different reasons. The interface is much cleaner, it's more intuitive, and you get features like single sign on and the ability when you're filling out or signing into an app that doesn't have single sign on to have populations of email addresses that you previously used so you don't have to type them in again. So, what else? They just like the fact that everything is in one spot. When you're using the built-in apps on a smart TV, sometimes you get free stuff and sometimes you get that. And also, every app that's available on the Apple TV is not available on smart TVs. Like, if I'm not mistaken, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you can get Pluto or the one owned by Sony. I forgot that other free service. Tubi. I don't think you can get Tubi or Pluto on smart TVs. I could be wrong because I don't look at them very often, but that's what some people tell me. Now,
Right. I don't remember with those two specifically, but you are correct that not every app is available on those other platforms. That is for sure. Yeah.
so, and
Yeah.
from the blind user perspective, it just works. Period. I mean, there
Yeah.
is a screen reader on the Samsung TVs that I have, and I only buy Samsung ones because I wanted. There's an app called Smart Things that you can connect them all and use it to turn the input, even though you can ask Siri to do the same thing. But anyways, I just like to have everything the same. So, um, the screen reader lags. It speaks slow. You can't control the voices. You can't control the speed. So it's great that they have it. And yes, you can use it for initial setup, but once you get your Apple TV, that screen reader is better than all of them put together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk back, whatever Samsung's are called, and again, it just everything in one spot.
I
You know, you
shared during the. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
you can sign into things. You can use Keychain to do your passwords, something you can't do on a smart TV. You can, if you have the single sign on. If you don't, I just talked about the population or the populating of the email addresses that you previously used. If you have one Apple ID, that's not a big deal anyway, because you use the same email address for everything. But if you're like me and Matt, you have multiple ones. Sometimes you use different ones for different things. But the bottom line is the accessibility is built in. You don't need any sighted help. I can plug my Apple TV and set it up with my phone, or I can, do it, on screen with the Siri remote, with dictation and whatever else I may need to do. And as long as your phone and your Apple TV is on the same Wi-Fi network, it's going to get the job done seamlessly. So, I mean,
That's
they
right.
they
That's
have
right.
come a long way because before you had to do everything with the remote, flicking and swiping and tapping and doing all that. But now you can do it all with your phone, and it's the as we call the Apple ecosystem, or the continuity that's built across the board that makes the Apple TV better than any smart TV apps that you can do.
Yeah.
Now, if you're
Yeah.
if you're a sighted user, then you might not feel the same way, but if you have an Apple TV and you're low vision or a totally blind user, the Apple TV is the way to go. Fire
It
TV,
is. It is.
Roku, or any other set-top box can't touch it. None of them.
And I shared on the first session that there are people who say the Apple TV's processor is comically powerful, for what it needs to be doing. But that extra power that you won't find in any other set top box is what makes it run so smoothly and with no lag and so forth. Closest one I've found to it is the X1 box from Comcast, but even that isn't, it just, I mean, there's just nothing that compares to Apple in the performance or the functionality of it. So yep, I agree.
I got a question about the I don't know if it's appropriate, the doorbell camera that you was talking about. Um, right now I'm using a Ring, but I'm trying to go to the Apple product. What's the name of the camera?
So there are a couple of different options. Do you want to use a wired or a battery operated doorbell?
Right now I have battery operated.
Okay. All right. So the one that you need to get is called the Aqara. That's Aqara. Amazon sells it. Aqara is a whole line of HomeKit compatible DIY security products. They have really a whole security system. It's, DIY. But what you need is the Aqara. I think it's the G3 is the name of the doorbell. But if you just go to Amazon and search Aqara doorbell, it'll pop right up. And that is the battery operated. I think it's the only battery operated HomeKit doorbell, really. And what will happen is there is for that one a plug-in chime that plugs in your home, and it is the thing that communicates with the doorbell, and it's what you use to add to HomeKit, and then the doorbell itself, of course, will go outside. The plug-in chime from Aqara can be programmed to either make sounds or not, but you're also going to be using your home pods. Now, the Aqara differs a little bit from the one Cliff was talking about. So he was talking about the Logitech Circle View, which is a wired only model. The Aqara does have its own app that you need to use to initially set up the product. So when you download the Aqara app, you can sign in with Apple. You can create your free account, and you can add the Aqara G3. It'll ask you to hold the phone near the plug-in chime and so on, and it'll get that added. Once that's done, you can then you can add it to the HomeKit app, to the Apple Home app as well. It'll give you the procedure for doing that, and it is a HomeKit secure doorbell. So all those features that we talked about, as far as like using iCloud storage and using the photo library to identify people's faces and stuff, it will do all of that. And it's supposed to, I think the batteries are supposed to last like 4 to 6 months before needing to be replaced, which is actually quite good for doorbells, as you know, because if you're using a Ring, I'm sure you're not getting 4 to 6 months on a battery there.
Definitely not.
So that's yeah. So it's a pretty nice device.
So with voiceover, if she switches profiles, will that voiceover automatically go off for her? Or how does a sighted person deal with voiceover when you have a blind person and a sighted person having those two profiles on the same?
Okay, so voiceover will not go off on its own. There are two ways that a sighted person can handle that. One is that they can just live with it because it doesn't affect navigation like it does on an iPhone or an iPad. The gestures and the commands are the same. Or the other option is they can turn it off. And the easiest way to do that is if you set your accessibility shortcut to toggle voiceover, because then they just triple click the back button, and
which I have.
Right, and it turns on. I mean, my kids sometimes do that if they pick up the remote and they don't want to hear voiceover, they just do that, and then when I get the remote and I realize it's off, I just turn it back on. Or of course, you can use the SIRI way of doing it too and tell it. But because it does not affect the navigation. It doesn't change the gestures like it does on iOS and iPadOS. There's not necessarily a need to turn it off. Now, again, if a person can see, they may find it annoying, whereas we find it necessary. So then, they can turn it off. But yeah, there isn't really the same need to.
What is the best way to make it easiest for her to go to her profile when she turns on the TV? I'm assuming switching her to the default user would be best, so that when you turn it on, it will automatically go to her. And then if I want to do my thing, I can go over and go to my account.
Switching the default user may or may not add unnecessary complications to things, but it's been my experience that it stays on whatever user you've last selected. I don't know if you restart the Apple TV, if it, then goes to the default or anything, but definitely, like when you put the Apple TV to sleep or turn it off, turn off the TV and so on, and then turn it back on, it will stay on whatever user was last selected. So it doesn't really have to be the default user.
Okay, so I probably just switch to her when I'm done. Might be the easiest way, so that she can.
Right.
Okay.
The other day, I accidentally purchased a movie by mistake, and I got it taken care of. But how do I keep from doing that again? So,
did you purchase it in the Apple TV app? Is that where it was?
Yes.
Well, probably the best thing, excuse me, is if you go to settings, and I think it's under. I gotta think where
purchase or something.
Well, the restriction? So you can first of all
restrictions. That's right.
You can do it a couple of ways. You can set it as a restriction, but you can also just require a password when you're going to make purchases. And I think that's not under restrictions. That is under, boy, oh boy, I'm trying to think on Apple TV. where that is because I haven't even gone there in a long
It
time.
is under.
Is it under settings and then apps? Maybe.
No, it's under. Where is it at? It's like app. It's like it's under your name, and then you swipe down to say
Oh,
allow free content, and then you say yes, so you don't have to
oh,
sign in. But again, after that, it says uh, allow purchases 15 minutes off, yes or no. I always say no because
oh,
if you click it within that 15 minutes, then it's not going to require you to sign in or
Right, right.
approve it.
So
So, but you could
you
set
have
it under
three
restrictions.
options.
I
You
think you could set
can
it under restrictions too, Matt, where you need a passcode, a 4-digit passcode,
right.
in
That
order to
one
make
is you
purchases.
need a passcode. Then that's right. But yeah, so there are three password options. You can require a password every time. It can require a password only after 15 minutes, or it can never require a password. So yeah, that's the setting you're looking for.
About the HomePod speakers and using that along with Apple TV and a regular TV. Um, I remember you saying the TV has to be compatible because we have a smart TV, but it's not real smart. It's a Samsung that we've had for 7 years, but it's not as smart as the LG more
Okay,
recent.
okay.
And I know you, Matt, have a similar setup like mine because I have Xfinity with the X1 remote. I have the Apple TV 4K. I have a sound bar, and then I have this Samsung almost smart TV, 7 years old. Will all of this work with the HomePod speaker? In that, will I be able to look at, we have some visual people and we have some not visual people. As far as broadcasting, will the TV if it's compatible, will it broadcast through the to the HomePod speakers?
You want to have the home pods playing all of your audio regardless of whether it's coming from the Apple TV or the X1 box or whatever. Is that the deal?
You got it.
Okay. Yeah. In order for that to work, the television, and you have to just, have somebody look at the HDMI ports. If it has an HDMI port that has either the word ARC or EARC, then it should work. Now, 7 years, boy, I don't remember when they introduced. It very well could be that it's new enough to have it, but it's going to be very clear if it has ARC, it's going to work. If not, it probably won't, because there has to be a special kind of HDMI port in order for that to work. Um, if it doesn't, you still can have you have a couple of options. It's not going to be exactly what you want, but it will suffice. And that is, you can still have the Apple TV use the home pods for speakers so that when you switch to Apple TV, the sound is coming from your home pods. And then when you switch to X1, it's coming from your TV or soundbar or whatever. Or you could have the Apple TV come from the quote unquote TV speakers, which would be your soundbar or what have you, and then you could still use the home pods on occasion. So, like, in other words, the default is going to be the TV, but then if you're watching, a movie or something, you can AirPlay to the home pods and you can use both. So, you have a few options, even if it's not fully compatible. Obviously, the best option for you is going to be if it has that ARC on one of the HDMI ports. If it does, just make sure that the Apple TV is the thing that's connected to the HDMI port with ARC, because that's what's needed in order to enable that setting. So thanks so much, Cliff, and everybody else. Thank you so much for coming today. Thanks for all your questions, and God bless you. We hope this has been a fantastic learning experience for you. And remember, if you have more questions about the Apple TV or any of the other products, or you want to get paid training, we just scratched the surface here. We do offer one-on-one training, so you can get in touch with either one of us. TTJtech.biz is my website. StirItUp.com is Cliff's. Remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I. And other than that, we have Apple Watch coming up next week and then iPad right after that. So you want to stay tuned. You can go back and listen to these episodes on the podcast if you need them again. And thanks so much for joining us, everybody. You all have a great weekend.
We'd like to thank you again for joining. Didn't get your question answered? Need additional training? Send us an email at support@ttjtech.biz or support@stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with the U. That's STURITUP.com. I'm Trainer Cliff. Thanks for joining us and see you next time. God bless.